First of all, welcome. My name is B. Neumann, the Global Careers Fellow with the Council. I'm a junior at Mount Lebanon High School, and I will be your moderator for the career panel. I'm very excited to be here with you all. Today, we have two speakers, Leo J. Trich Jr. and Andrea Murillo. And first, after attending both the California University of Pennsylvania and Washington and Jefferson College, Leo J. Trich Jr. became the vice president of USA Baseball and a member of the United States Olympic Committee. At the age of 24, he was the youngest person to be elected as a member of the Washington City Council. Leo was later elected to represent the 47th Legislative District in Pennsylvania House of Representatives in 1988. Following his political career, Leo founded a nonprofit volunteer organization called Ballpark Scholarship Inc., which has awarded more than $100,000 to Western PA students. He continues to host student leadership forums and assist organizations such as the World Affairs Council of Pittsburgh. Originally from Honduras, Andrea Murillo studied business management and competitive intelligence and international development. Having traveled the world, she now works in maximizing companies' business reach and potential as a sales engineer. Andrea founded Juniares College chapter of Nourish International and also worked with the Humane Society of Huntington County. Andrea, a lover of culture and art both in her work and at home, is an advocate striving to improve the lives of others. So before I open up to the audience to ask questions, I have a few. First, Leo, what does leading with intention mean to you?
Actually, I think it's something that is similar in meaning to many people. In my case, it means that you want to establish as clearly as possible the goals that you want to achieve, have a very clear plan in order to achieve those goals, and to try to do it in a way that you're working hard enough and showing your own resolve that you can get other people involved in trying to help you achieve them. So it's kind of a leadership style that I think is important to all of us, no matter what our work might be. But that's pretty much how I see it.
Thank you. That's very interesting. Andrea, what advice can you give to young adults looking to enter your specific field?
Looking to enter my specific field, I would say is to decide early on also what is passionate to you and what your purpose, what you think your purpose is. I feel like my career, even though it's not been very long, I have taken little turns and not always had like a very direct path to what I've had, but you have to realize that all these little experiences teach you something and they make you realize what it is that you really want and hone in what your true interest is. So for my specific, so I work in IT. So all these little things that I have done throughout my career have led me to realize that IT is something that I'm passionate about. So taking time to be mindful about all these experiences and reflect on them to realize what is it that I liked, what is it that I didn't like, and then try to find the one thing that links all those experiences together to realize what it is that you truly want to do.
Thank you. I might take that advice for myself. So this one is for Leo, but Andrea, you can also answer it. What would you consider a paramount moment in your career journey? Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, if you could, please. For some reason, we kind of froze for a moment there.
Okay. What would you consider a paramount moment in your career journey?
I would have to think that in my case, anyways, I achieved, I think, what would be my ultimate goal as far as getting involved in government service and in particular international type government service. And I did it in a roundabout way. I actually fell into a job very quickly after college. It was in sports. Now, I'd always had a love of sports, so that worked out okay. But it also whet my appetite for what can be achieved internationally. Many of the ball players that I met through the game of baseball came from all over the world. So I had an opportunity to meet not only with them, but their family members and coaching staffs. And it really kind of whet my appetite for becoming more involved in international affairs. Now, at a point in my career, it seemed to make more sense to take the next logical step, and that was to get involved in public service and government. So I served in the state legislature. This was after, of course, I had served in city council. And by the way, I like the fact that you guys make reference that I was the youngest, the 24-year-old member of city council, because many years later and gray hair, it's hard to visualize someone being 24 at my age, I guess. But that was a learning experience, certainly, at that post. But getting involved in baseball, oddly enough, gave me an opportunity to meet more people, and I think grow the desire I had to get involved with international government, international affairs. So that's what kind of led me in that direction.
That's really interesting. Andrea, do you want to answer it too?
Sure. So I think for me, it was an internship I did while I was at Juniata, actually. It was with with an alumni actually from Juniata, and she had just started a little, like her own startup. And it was kind of a marriage between the social sector and the public sector and the private sector, I'm sorry. And it was this social enterprise that helped women in Peru commercialize their products and sell them in the United States. And that's where, since it was a startup, you kind of had to wear different hats all at the same time. And it really taught me to be adaptable. It was in Peru, so I really had to learn to adapt to that environment, even though I'm also Latin American. The culture is different. Some aspects of the language are different. So I think that was an experience that made me realize that it's okay to step out of your comfort zone sometimes. And also it helped me realize that you can have like the best of both worlds, like between private and public sector, and the importance of networking also, since it was an alumni that provided this opportunity. And I used to think like, oh yeah, networking, what is it you have to do? What is it about? Like just talking to people. But those connections are very important actually. And it's something that has helped me through with my job now, is something that is very important in sales, to network. So I think that was one experience that taught me and made me realize what it is that I wanted to do and what I could do later on.
That's really cool how you both started out young, which just inspires us, the youth that are here today with the audience. So now I open up to the audience to ask questions in the chat. And as we wait for those, both of you have traveled around the world, I'm assuming. So how do countries demonstrate leadership differently?
That's very interesting, actually. I think if you don't mind, Leo, I think I have something to add for this. I've learned that, for example, countries in Europe and Latin America, there's different types of leadership. There are some that are more hierarchical, so it's more top-down kind of thing. Even in the language, for example, we have like a formal way of speaking to people and an informal way of speaking to people. So that's something that you have to learn early on, and realize that when you want to talk to someone, you have to knock on the door before talking to your superiors. And I found that in the US, it's more, first of all, there's no difference between formal and informal. Everyone is you. That's something that you feel also in the management level, how you can easily just approach people. I found it a bit easier to approach my bosses while I worked in the US. It's just a little difference I realized. I don't know if you have had the same experiences.
Leah, would you like to add on to that?
No, I think she's covered that very well. Certainly in our country, as Andrea indicated, it's there's no difference, I guess, between formal and informal conversation at the government level. What I have found in working the little bit that I have already with the European Union and the work that they do there, I guess the greatest challenge that I see over there is not a challenge, but they handle it very well. Whereas in our country, we're dealing from state to state. And although we have our own various accents, for the most part, we can understand each other pretty easily. In Europe, they deal with the issue of, many languages and many different cultures. But I was very, very impressed with what I did see in their ability to go beyond that. They work very well for example, in their parliament, which is significantly larger than our own Congress. For example, in this country, they speak many languages, but I think English is probably the language that they most commonly use for that purpose. But it's amazing to me that they've been able to achieve that as well as they have. So that to me is very impressive, and I think anybody that would have a chance to witness it would walk away with that same feeling.
Most certainly. So in the chat, we have a question from Jordan. Leo, what were some of the biggest steps other than baseball that you think led to your position today?
I think, again, it goes back to learning how to deal with individuals, not only from different states, because, we talk sometimes about international sports, but there's a difference certainly between even athletes coming from one part of the country to the other. There's differences between the cultural backgrounds of athletes within our own country, whether they come from a poor community or whether they come from a wealthier community, for example. Certainly that is multiplied when you're looking at international competition. So I think that what baseball had taught me along those lines was that there are differences certainly between us in sports, but the similarities far outweigh that. And the good part about that is what goes on the athletic field itself is the exact same language, the exact same desires to do your best and to strive towards success. But again, just having the opportunity to get to know and understand people, I think helped me a great deal, not only in the area of sports, but in my work as a legislator in Pennsylvania, and now as I attempt to deal with young people, trying to get them more involved, more interested in international affairs. So I think that baseball taught me that from just having an opportunity to deal with a variety of people from many different backgrounds.
I think it's really interesting just working with people from different backgrounds and that type of culture. And Andrea, as someone with an admiration for culture and art, how have you connected your passion into your job and all of its tasks?
Okay, yeah, that's has not been the most easy thing to do, I have to say, but I think one of the things that's helped me is to identify those opportunities where you can bring that into your job. And sometimes what I've learned is you kind of have to create the position you want also. So for example, when my first job in France was also as an assistant project manager at an IT company, and it was a small company. So whenever, for example, our clients needed some kind of logo remade or something, I would volunteer myself to make proposals and make some design input. So that's how I considered my way to bring arts and culture into my job, even as small as it was, if it was just bringing some creative element into it. So that's one way I've done it. And I'm still trying to find new ways to do it, because it's not always easy to try to bring arts and culture into sales. It's a lot about relationships. So finding that common ground, I guess, with our clients, our prospects, all of our partners is something that I've enjoyed. So yeah, it has not been, I haven't figured it out completely. I still do it as a hobby, but I think, yeah, trying to find a way to create that position for you to eventually is something that can be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's definitely some helpful advice. Leo, what are certain lessons you have taught the students that you engage with at Ballpark Scholarship Inc?
Forgive me, but for some reason my sound is not working as well as it should. Please, can you repeat that one more time, please?
Yeah, of course. What are certain lessons that you have taught the students that engage with Ballpark Scholarship Inc?
One of the things we attempted to do with this scholarship program, and by the way, real quick, by way of background, In my home area of Washington, Pennsylvania, just south of Pittsburgh, we were looking for an economic development type project in my final term in office. And we decided that perhaps building a sports venue, a ballpark that would be sufficient to bring professional minor league baseball to our area would be an economic driver. So we were able to do that by raising monies locally. As a matter of fact, we raised about, and I think this is right, 82% of the money for the ballpark locally, and the rest, the 18%, came from state and federal dollars. So the largest amount was local. We made a promise to the people in our area that if they helped us do this, that any money that we would end up with above and beyond the cost of building the ballpark, operating it, cutting the grass, paying the light bills, and that kind of stuff, we would give away in a way of scholarships. So monies that we have given away over the years have been from that project. That's why the name Ballpark Scholarships Incorporated. But here's something that has changed over the course of the 20 years we've been doing this. Originally, they were almost totally sports scholarships. Someone who was playing baseball, who wanted to go on to college, we would help them with scholarships along those lines. We then broadened that, of course, to be baseball and softball to make sure that we were making it available to both boys and girls who wanted to further education. In more recent years, we really made another major change, and I think it's the best change we've made. The change we made now in that scholarship arrangement is that in addition to someone playing sports, and you no longer have to be a varsity sports member in order to qualify. Anybody who's played any sport at any level is eligible to apply for these scholarships. And even those who have disabilities, for example, who could not play on team sports are also still eligible. What we have made it, though, we've made it top heavy, not solely on grades, not solely on their ability to pay or not pay for college, but rather how much volunteerism these young people do in their schools and in their community. We felt that having someone show those type of leadership traits, that type of involvement in their school and their community was very, very important. So that's really what we have geared the scholarships up for now. Yes, we look at grades, certainly, and yes, we look at other aspects of their education career, but we want to make sure that we're rewarding those people, many of whom are, I'm sure, with us today, who take an active part in their schools and take an active part in their community. So we want to reward those folks as well. So that's really what the scholarships have now become, and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I like how you broaden your audience to focus on leadership, which is what this seminar is all about. Kathleen has a question for the both of you in the chat, which is, what are some soft skills that are important in your work, and how did you acquire those skills?
I'm sorry, again, I'm having a rough time on that side. Try it one more time, B, I'm sorry.
Okay. What are some of the soft skills that are important in your work, and how did you acquire those skills?
You know, the skills, I guess, are something that go back to the age that you are right now, and that is you're learning as you go in the different fields that you're entering into, whether it's at school, preparing for college, preparing for that first job that you do while you're in school, even as an example. In my case, when I ran for city council, again, going back, in my younger days, the skills that I think I picked up then that have helped me since is keeping in mind when I was 24, many of the people on city council look like me now. I mean, they were older individuals. So I was kind of the odd duck, if you will, in the group. And I had to prove my worth. I had to prove my ability to gain any type of trust or respect from them. So one of the things I learned to do pretty early on was to listen really well, not just merely be prepared to give my opinion, but to make sure that I was listening to other opinions as well. That was a skill, I think, that I picked up at that time. The other part of that is you have to look at things from not only your own perspective, but from someone else's. And a good example, in my home area, the city of Washington is a relatively small city, but it's very diversified as far as our population is concerned, both with minority residents as well as non-minority residents, Democrats and Republicans, pretty even Steven, pretty even down the line. That was actually a plus for me because I couldn't look at it only from my own party view. I had to look at it from the view of the other person that I was actually serving with on council, but also the people that I was serving as members of the community. And I think that was a positive. If anything, let me make one little commercial about issues that we're dealing with today along those scores. Redistricting, which everybody hears about and talks about on how we divide up our legislative districts and our congressional districts, I think has become a major problem for us because everybody's now trying to make their district fit them rather than the other way around. I think that if our districts were more even, that it would make everybody have to pay attention from two different angles. So that was kind of something I think I picked up even then. And here's the last item, and I'll quit at this point. I found out early on, being an absolute strong B student, not an A student, but a B student, that it makes sense to make sure you're taking advice and seeking out people who are smarter than you. Not to be afraid of that. In my case, I tried to utilize the people that I worked with and gain from their experiences and gain from their knowledge. And trust me, as I moved up at the state level and beyond, I still do everything I can to bring people in, whether it's hiring a staff person or working with others in my field. Don't be afraid to keep people who are smarter than you around you. Because that is certainly very, very helpful. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's definitely, do not be afraid to seek out people who are smarter than you. I think it will just make you better and learn more. I agree with Leo also about communication. It's something that you can start working on now. Learning how to listen is critical for sales, especially. So just learning to listen and also realizing that it's okay to not be right 100% of the time. I think learning to be adaptable is key also to being able to work in different environments, even if doesn't have to be in a different country, but just at a different job or different company with other people, just learning to realize what those people want to communicate, how they express that, and then adapting to that will get you a lot farther than just trying to impose your style or what it is that you want to do. So that's something that has been very important to me and has helped me a lot. And something else that I also learned early on in college was if you want to learn how to lead, then you have to put yourself in those positions where you are a leader. And that's really the best way to learn. And that's really the best way to learn from your mistakes. When I was in college, I started Nourish International, which was a chapter from part of a bigger national organization to help raise funds to do social work abroad. And that chapter did not exist at our university, and just putting myself in that position where you are a founder and you go through all the motions and recruit the people. I was not a born leader. I was not someone who had done this before, but just doing it teaches you how to do it. And the stakes are not that big. It's okay. You're creating a chapter for your university, your high school. You're putting yourself in that position. It doesn't matter how big it is, but the skills will remain. So I think that's something that and even our college professors taught us that if you want to learn how to lead, then just put yourself in those positions where you're a leader. And doesn't even have to be like the founder of a chapter or something. It just has to be a place where you have to organize and learn how to communicate with people, and those are skills that will remain. So I think that's something that if you can do that, you can stick it out, and it's you will only gain from it. Like, it's okay to make mistakes also. That's what I said. You have to learn to, you won't always, not everything will work out, and that's okay. Like you will learn from that, and it will take you somewhere else. You'll learn what your next step is from there. So I think that's something that has been good.
Yeah, both of you were super young when your careers took off, and just like the skills that you learned and how it got you to here is just so interesting to hear. Sam has a question for Leo, and it's, what path did you take to become a congressman?
Well, first of all, I served in the state legislature. Let me clarify that. So I didn't make the Congress. My wife would have loved that because the money's a lot better. But I actually served in state government for a while, for 14 years actually. It's ironic that you asked that question because my career path, and I guess this is something I would suggest to all of you out there who are listening to this. Sometimes your career path isn't a straight line, and mine certainly was not. My career path, as I indicated, I fell into a job, literally fell into a job right out of college, but it was in baseball. And from there, I decided to run for city council, as we've talked about already. And that's a 4-year term. I did that for 4 years, but because my job with baseball had me starting to travel more and more, both here in the States, but also internationally, I couldn't run for another term. And a term in my hometown, because of its size, is it's not a full-time job. It's only a very, very part-time position on city council. But I had remembered when I was extremely young, when I was in grade school, at that time, and this will really date me, but John Kennedy was running for office at that time. And we actually were told to select one candidate or another, and we had mock elections. And I really got kind of excited about that. I really enjoyed that. After John Kennedy was elected, some of the things that he worked on, including the Peace Corps and things like that, where he was, again, trying to show the best of America, I think, around the world to the extent that we could. And I enjoyed that aspect of it. So I knew that at some point I'd want to probably come back into the public service arena, if you will. So even though I, again, went to baseball first, I was able to gain, I think, some experiences which helped me tremendously as I decided then to move into government. So again, long answer to a short question. My career path changed more than once to eventually get me into state government. And I would also mention to you that undoubtedly your course may change from time to time too, but the important thing is to make sure you keep your eye on the ball, to make sure that, if there's a goal that you want to achieve, keep that out there and just be prepared to take different courses to get there.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to note, as like teenagers and our dream jobs change every year. Personally, freshman year, I wanted to be an actress, and now that's not necessarily the dream. Thank you for highlighting that. And for Andrea, what steps did you take to travel abroad, and what skills did you gain, and how was your experience overall?
I guess something that was very important for me was learning a second language very early on. So my native language is Spanish, and then I was lucky that my parents realized early enough that learning a second language would be very helpful for me. So I learned English since I was very young, and that gave me the opportunity to study abroad in the United States, in Pennsylvania, and get a scholarship to do so. And it was really there that all these other doors opened for me. So really that was one of the key steps, was just learning a second language. It doesn't matter what it was, although I think English is a very common field. All of you are probably already speak English, obviously. So that's very, very important. And then what was the other part of your question? Just what were the steps?
Yeah, and what skills did you learn, and how was your overall experience?
Yeah, I guess the steps were, like I said, for leadership is putting yourself in those positions where you'll be able to travel. So for example, Nourish International was a big chapter, but one of the main goals was traveling abroad and doing service projects abroad. So picking that specifically was something that really helped me learn about other countries and made me get the opportunity that I talked about before, the internship for Peru. And then I worked for another global company that built schools in Africa and India. And then from there, then it was more personal reasons that led me to come to Europe and come to France. But I guess just the fact that knowing another language made me a bit more open-minded. So meeting people from other countries was easier, talking to them. That's actually how I met my husband, who is French, and that is why I moved to France. So then when I was in France, I had the itty bitty problem of not speaking French. So I had to learn that when I got there. But just because I already spoke English and Spanish, that made it a bit easier, I think. So the overall experience, it's what we've been saying before. It was not always clear. It was not how I graduated from high school. And I was like, okay, one day I will be a sales engineer in France. Not at all. But that's how life happened. And I think it was finding those opportunities. Since I've had the experience of living in the US, being from Honduras, I knew that I could move to another country and do it again. So that was a common thread. And I think finding those things that those experiences and what you like about them is what will make you realize what you can do abroad. So I think putting yourselves in those positions, and if you have the opportunity to study abroad, even if it's just for 1 semester or a week or 2 weeks, definitely do it, because it's something that you get out of your comfort zone, and that's when you realize what you're capable of. It's an experience I recommend to everyone. If you can do it, definitely go ahead, do it.
Yeah, that's
As
really
a matter of fact, B, if I may, can I interrupt? And I agree 100% with what Andrea just said. And one of the things that I've discovered, and Andrea, I'd like to hear your opinion about this as well. One of the things I've found when I have had an opportunity to travel to Europe, and I've been fortunate to have traveled there multiple times, but in dealing with young people your age, and also those of college age, it's striking to me how much individuals from other countries know about America. And I don't mean just know about us from TV. I mean, know about our government structure and how things work here and so forth. And unfortunately, the other side of that coin is I'm concerned that sometimes we as Americans, and I put myself in that position, when I was in high school, when I was in college, I didn't pay enough attention, I don't believe, to the people of other countries and understanding their form of government, understanding how they do things compared to how we do things, as an example. So I would hope that you would follow what Andrea is saying. If you have an opportunity to travel abroad or to go to school abroad, do that, because I think to every instance that you have in gaining more knowledge about the people around the world, with the world being so small and so interconnected, that's going to be critical to you no matter what you decide to do in business or government or whatever the case may be. Andrea, if I may be, let me ask Andrea real quick. Would you agree with that sometimes American students don't fully pay attention to the affairs of other countries of the world?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's easy though to pay attention to the United States. There's so much power, influence that the United States has over other countries that I think it's a bit easier for us. I mean, I never get upset at anyone who doesn't know where Honduras is on a map, because we're such a small country. But it's definitely so much better when you do have that knowledge and at least some conscious about it. Yes, I would agree with you. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking that. That's a really good question. Just how the world is small, but you can just like enrich in your lives just by traveling around it. And there's a question from Garrett, which is, in your field, is there a skill or trait you feel is unfortunately uncommon?
I'm sorry, but that question for whom? I'm sorry, I missed that again. Sorry.
It's from Garrett, and it's, in your field, is there a skill or trait you feel is unfortunately uncommon?
And I apologize. My sound. I'm gonna try dealing with this on my end. If you can go to a question to Andrea for a second.
Sure.
Forgive me.
Andrea, can you answer it? Or do you want me to read it?
Sure. I think one thing that lacks a lot from the field I'm in is definitely this ability to be adaptable sometimes and to listen. I think that's something that I don't know if it is because there's a bit of lack of diversity where I live. I live in Strasbourg, which is not exactly Paris, so it's not quite as cosmopolitan. So it's yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it's easy to find diversity, so it's harder for people to have to adapt to different situations. So, for example, I speak French, but I might have a bit of an accent. I always put that forth, like I have an accent, so can let me know if you don't understand. That immediately makes me more vulnerable towards people, and I think that makes it easier to speak to me, and something that, I mean, has helped me, I think. But I think the fact some people, when you try to talk to someone who is not used to talking to someone who has French is not their native language, they are like, I'm sorry, I can't understand you. I don't want to talk about this. I think sometimes that adaptability and open-mindedness can like a little bit, but not a lot. I have not experienced that a lot, but I guess that would be one thing if I had to pick one. So that's where the importance of traveling and learning from other cultures and being open-minded can really help, because sometimes we miss on opportunities because we don't want to take the time or the patience to be a bit more lenient towards people from different places. So I will say that has been very like few experiences like that. So it's just, if I had to pick one, I guess that would be one.
Okay, and B, I finally figured out now what the question is. And by the way, foolish me, everything is written off to the right, so what I don't hear, I could read. Sorry about that, but now halfway, we're 2/3 into this, and I finally figured that out. One of the I think the traits that is becoming unfortunately uncommon, at least in the political side, not baseball right now, but in my background, the political side, is maybe an unwillingness to listen to each other. There used to be a time, good example, when I was in the legislature in Pennsylvania, where myself and a colleague would argue in a debate on the floor of the House over a given issue. They may not back down from their position, I may not back down from my position, but at the end of the day, whatever the majority vote was, we went along with that. And that night we went out to dinner. Because tomorrow was to be another issue, another matter to deal with. Unfortunately, today, we're seeing more and more where the political divide has become so much that oftentimes some of our elected officials don't cooperate with each other as much as they should. So I hope and pray that people of your generation will do a better job and bring us back to where we were. And I think that's going to happen. In dealing with different organizations and groups that I've had the pleasure of dealing with through the World Affairs Council and others, I have a great deal of faith that you folks are going the right direction on that. So that's one of the ones. That's a trait, though, that I wish we would kind of get back. Just being willing to listen to each other, and even when we don't agree, respect the other person's opinion.
And branching off from dealing with those differences, how have you maintained mindfulness in working with communities that have diversity? And that's for both Leo and Andrea.
I'll yield to Andrea to go first.
Sorry, I'm take off my mute. I think just trying, well, since I've had the opportunity to travel abroad and learn from other people, I think that has just made me more sensitive, I guess, to the fact that we come from different places and we might not always have the same way of communicating or have the same priorities. But once you identify the common goal, I think it's much easier to understand that we can work together for that same purpose or goal. So I think, yeah, I think that is why I highly recommend traveling abroad, and because that will, once you meet someone, it's one thing to read about something in some situation, but one of my best friends from college was actually someone from Afghanistan, which I would have never probably met in Honduras. And just having conversations with her every day, we were roommates for some time, I just got to understand on a deeper level what the issues were there, and how she dealt with this, how her priorities were different than mine, how some things impacted her in different ways. So those conversations are really what will make you have some type of shift in perspective and make you work better in a diverse setting, I think, and context.
Okay. Yeah, and in my case, it was a pretty easy decision to make as far as being able to travel abroad. Unfortunately, I've not had as much opportunity to travel in Latin America, South America that I would have liked to. Most of my travel has been to Europe, with few exceptions, and it's an easy journey. Trust me. There were times when I thought that it would be so difficult, but it really wasn't. Language barriers, to an extent, you just have to get used to, and don't make the same mistake that I and many Americans make. We think if we talk slower and louder, that they will then understand us. It doesn't work that way. Try to learn their language too, to the extent that you can, so that you can give the courtesy to them when you're asking for something specific. But again, it's not a big issue in Europe, certainly, only because I've found the people there to be very cooperative and understanding of Americans in that respect. But as far as mapping out your plan, I think a good one would be in the group that we're talking to today, your age group, would be go back to something that Andrea said earlier. And that is, to the extent that you can, hopefully with your parents' support, decide to travel abroad, and then perhaps even go to school abroad, whether it's for short term or long term. If I were you, I would jump at that opportunity. If I could wave a magic wand, I think, and go back in time, because of my desire to be in government service, which I don't regret that at all, and I love baseball, so that was fine. I always wanted, at least I thought I wanted, to be involved in some facet of the diplomatic corps, working for the State Department or something like that. I wish now I would have done that. I think at your age in high school and getting ready to go to college, for you to pursue that type of a career, it would make sense for you to have a chance to travel abroad and to have a better understanding of that. But that to me is a great career choice, and I would hope that more and more young people would decide to do it.
Yeah, most certainly. And since that is the area that I want to go into, I look forward to traveling abroad. So as we end our session today, I would like to wrap up with you guys sharing some upcoming events that you have going on, or just remaining bits of advice.
I guess if I had to give one advice that I think is very important is this is a perfect age, I think, to learn how to learn. And that is something that will help you no matter what you decide to do. So learning how to identify those resources that you might need, organizing them, having critical thinking skills, seeking out those relationships that will help you, and like just identifying those opportunities and getting yourself on the path to get those, I think is the most important thing for you now. There are jobs that maybe, and this is something they used to tell me even when I started also, is we might be learning for jobs that don't even exist yet. So it's something that you have to, I think something that's the most important thing is to learn how to learn and identify those opportunities, organize them, and hone those critical thinking skills, so that later on, when you do realize what it is you want to go after, you can put that in practice. And if you want to work in an international setting also, that's one thing that has helped me a lot, is just helping to identify the things that I need to succeed in a certain country or in a certain culture. So whether it was in the US or in France or in Peru, it was something that it has been critical for me, just learning how to identify those things that you need.
Yeah, I would concur with what Andrea said. That certainly, learn to learn. That without question is something that all of us want to do, no matter what your age level is. But I also think that your involvement, the experiences that you gain from your involvement in school activities, in community activities, volunteerism, being involved in a World Affairs Council, all those things add up. They will help you in many ways down the road that you're not even thinking of right now, perhaps. So continue doing what you're doing. That goes without saying. The other one is, don't be discouraged if your initial plans don't always work out exactly the way you expect them to. As I said earlier on, sometimes you'll take a variety of courses to get to the ultimate goal that you want to achieve. And nor should you let people easily influence you in changing your mind on what it is you want to do in a career path. Real quick example, when I was in high school, again, being that solid B student, I can remember a guidance counselor telling me when I told her I might want to go to law school, I wanted to go to Pitt and perhaps go to law school. And she says, you know what, Leo, I don't think that's really for you. Perhaps you ought to think about becoming a teacher, because at that time, the Vietnam War was going on and teachers were in short demand. I always got a chuckle about that, because even though she didn't feel that I was capable of interpreting the law, eventually I was able to go to Harrisburg and write the law. So I say that to you, in that don't let people discourage you from what you want to do. Your abilities will carry you much, much further than maybe some of you right now think is possible. So stay positive and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much to both of you for joining us today and giving us your advice. I asked the audience to also share your thank yous in the chat, and I believe that the link for the next session